Got a continuation of the Randy Orton series, which is the Randy Orton, the Legend Killer, Rise of a Superstar. Now, Randy Orton, he's done with his feud, as stated in the last video, with Triple H at the Royal Rumble 2005, where he failed to capture the World Heavyweight Championship. After this, Randy Orton has a segment with superstar Billy Graham. He gives Randy Orton some advice on an episode of Raw to go nowhere that anyone has gone before. After he gives Randy Orton this advice, it's a picture of Undertaker on the cover of the WWE magazine, signifying that he's going to challenge The Undertaker at WrestleMania. Now, Undertaker, he's a superstar from SmackDown. Randy Orton is still on Raw. So it's an inter-promotional brand between two superstars from different brands. Also, Undertaker, this is the first year where WWE acknowledges the streak. He's 12-0 at this point. Even though he defeated 12 men, the streak was never recognized until now. It's when the streak became a thing. And Randy Orton was the first one where it became a thing with. Now, originally, as most of you fans know, the real wrestling fans know, or some don't know, Randy Orton was asked personally by The Undertaker to end the streak. Randy Orton said no out of respect for Undertaker, for what he's done in the industry, and especially what he's done for WWE. And this would really captivate his career if he did win the streak, especially at this time in his career where he was still young and he had a lot more left in him. Anyway, Randy Orton came out of an episode of Raw. He challenged The Undertaker for a match at WrestleMania. He had his on-screen girlfriend, Stacy Keibler, with him. And he was letting Undertaker know that he's not to be messed with. He's not to be taken for a joke. And he was going to send a message to The Undertaker. He did that by RKO Stacy Keibler in the middle of the ring. Left her lying there and walked out. Now, next couple weeks, Orton's talking trash towards Undertaker. Now, a segment of the highlight reel by Chris Jericho, Jake the Snake Roberts came on there, and he was one of the previous victims of Undertaker at previous WrestleMania, which was WrestleMania 8. He advised Orton not to take the Undertaker lightly, and Randy Orton didn't like what he was saying. Jake the Snake Roberts did this clothesline on him, and Randy Orton at the end hit with RKO, which was pretty nice. So that was the end of that segment. Also, there was a contract signing, and it was Randy Orton and Undertaker, obviously. Also, it was Raw's general manager, Eric Bischoff, and SmackDown's general manager, Teddy Long, on an episode of SmackDown. So they did a contract signing. He shook Teddy Long's hand. Eric Bischoff was hesitant on shaking Randy Orton's hand because on an episode of Raw before that, he RKO'd Eric Bischoff once he acknowledged that he was a legend, meaning the legend killer, because he ran WCW and ran for 84 weeks, and he RKO'd Eric Bischoff. Anyway, Undertaker came out to the ring. He slapped Undertaker, and he left. And Undertaker was upset about that. On the next episode of SmackDown, Bob Orton, Randy's father, who recently was, the night before WrestleMania, was getting inducted to the Hall of Fame. He was telling Undertaker about Randy Orton, saying, "Hey, have mercy on my son. Don't do this to him. You know, he's out of his mind, blah, blah, blah." And Undertaker said, "No, I'm not holding back." And Bob Orton said, I'm begging you, please don't do this. It would end up being ruse. Randy Orton came from behind, hit RKO. Him and his dad smiling, laughing at Undertaker. And Undertaker was, of course, not happy with that. They had the match at WrestleMania 21, which was April 3rd, 2005. Great match, great counters. Orton, for his age, he was 25 at this point. He has very good ring IQ. He was able to go toe to toe with someone of so much experience with The Undertaker, counter some good moves. But the one spot that was, of course, significant is where Undertaker went for a choke slam. Randy Orton reversed to RKO. He did the Undertaker's taunt for a tombstone pile driver. It was countered. Undertaker did his tombstone pile driver. He beat a 1-2-3 despite the outside interference from Cowboy Bob Orton, who hit Undertaker. He got in the match. He kicked Bob Orton out of the ring when he went through the ropes. Did a long kick to him. But nonetheless, Undertaker won that match, continued his streak at 13-0 for that year. Now, Undertaker, since he did defeat Orton, Orton had a match on Raw against Batista. He injured his shoulder from Batista's storyline, and also Orton said he was injured from Undertaker. He was out for a while, and Undertaker wasn't doing anything much, but Orton pretty much was out. He didn't come back until maybe May. He made an appearance on Raw. It was about the WWE draft coming up. Vince McMahon came out there. He was telling Vince McMahon, I'm ineligible for the draft. I'm injured, blah, blah. Orton, he had a buzz cut. He lost some weight. He said he couldn't train because his shoulder, even McMahon, everyone acknowledged how skinny he was, how different he looked. And Orton said, hey, I'm going to make a comeback more fierce than ever. And McMahon was telling him that anyone can be eligible for the draft. You could even go to SmackDown. Nonetheless, it was a match between JBL Undertaker for a draft pick. Undertaker was screwed out of the match when Randy Orton came out of nowhere, hit with RKO. And he also made an announcement that he was the number 2 draft pick and he was going to stay on SmackDown. He told Undertaker, used to him, he's going to be on SmackDown. And he also cut another promo saying that I should have won that match at WrestleMania. I had a played off his injury, had a nagging injury. Undertaker took advantage of it, and I won a match with him at SummerSlam, which they did have. That was in August. Had the match. Once again, Bob Orton interfered. But this time he interfered in disguise, in a mask, as some unknown fan that got in the crowd. He came into the ring with the referees. While Undertaker saw that, he turned behind trying to get Orton up, who was on the ground. He hit him with an RKO. 1-2-3. Randy Orton defeats The Undertaker. Now it's 1-1. So Undertaker realized that it was Bob Orton under the mask. He was not too pleased about that. They end up having a handicapped casket match at the No Mercy pay-per-view in October of that year, 2005. Ironically, that was Eddie Guerrero's last pay-per-view. RIP Latino Heat. He passed away in November of that year. Just a little side note. That was the last pay-per-view he ever was in before he passed away. Back to Undertaker and Orton. They had their match. Orton's defeated Undertaker. Handicap match. It's obvious. What they did was they put holes on the casket. They lit it on fire, similar to what Undertaker did to Kane back in 97. Lit on fire. Kayfabe killing the Undertaker. He's gone. He's not coming back. As they thought so. Now, at the Survivor Series pay-per-view, was Raw vs. SmackDown. for brand warfare. Randy Orton was the sole survivor for 3 years in a row, previously winning the other two Survivor Series, as I mentioned in my other videos. He won this year too. After the celebration, Undertaker returns with a vengeance, with fire coming out. He attacked all the SmackDown superstars in the ring. Randy Orton and Bob Orton ran out the ring. That was the end of that pay-per-view. Let him know that he was back. Now, at the December 2nd episode of SmackDown, Undertaker challenged Randy Orton inside Hell in a Cell. Now, for the fans that know, Hell in a Cell is a very brutal match, the most brutal match in WWE history, up there with the Elimination Chamber, which is also brutal, but Elimination Chamber is 6-man, but one-on-one Hell in a Cell is brutal. Normally, when a feud ends, it ends in Hell in a Cell. When a Hell in a Cell match is on, that's usually the last of that feud, the end of everything. That signifies that this feud is going to be over. Because as previously stated, Undertaker and Orton already had two one-on-one matches at WrestleMania and SummerSlam, and they had the handicap match at No Mercy. So it was already 3 bouts altogether, even though that was handicapped. This was going to be the last one for the tiebreaker for the one-on-one match. And Undertaker wanted that done. Now Orton, he sees that Undertaker's not playing around with him. He wasn't going for it. The next episode, December 9th episode of SmackDown, he begged for mercy. He said Randy Orton says he's going to retire. I don't want to do this anymore. Let's just end it right here. Undertaker says, no, we're not going to end it like that. We're going to have this match at No Mercy. So obviously he didn't like that. So the next episode coming up, which was the last one before Armageddon, Randy Orton came out again, said he wanted to cancel the match. Undertaker said no. They had a face-to-face confrontation, even though it ended up becoming a setup, which RKO Mr. Randy Orton, he did to Undertaker. And he hit him with an urn, and his dad was in a druid as a distraction. So that was a setup they matched for Hell in a Cell. Now, they had a great Hell in a Cell match, great spots. I liked how Undertaker, he mostly gets offense, I noticed, in most of his Hell in a Cell matches. He got in this one, considering what he went through with Orton, with the screwed out of SummerSlam match with distraction and the handicap match and throwing him on fire. They even had one segment where they made a joke where they had a retirement fund for the Undertaker. It was $1,400, which was funny. And Undertaker, he lit check on fire, which I thought was pretty funny. So during this match, there was a lot of attacks. Now, what's crazy is Bob Orton, even though it's Hell in a Cell match, everything's locked up away, Bob Orton still found a way to interfere. What he did was he went through the hole at one point in the match and he held Undertaker's hair. He was pulling his hair back while Randy Orton was attacking him on the other side. And I was like, at this point, in my opinion, I don't think Bob Orton needs to be interfered in this match, because if you look at past matches, he interfered at WrestleMania 21. He interfered at SummerSlam. He was even in the handicap match for No Mercy, for the casket match. At that point, I didn't think he was needed anymore. I know he was very important in his feud, but at that point, it had to be just Undertaker and Orton. Like I said, Hell in a Cell's the last match. You didn't need Bob Orton anymore. He should have been gone about his business at this point. He was already inducted to the Hall of Fame. He already made his mark. Everyone knew what he was about, involved in this feud. He didn't need to be involved in the feud no more. I thought that was a little too much, in my opinion. So while like I said, he attacked Orton attacked Undertaker while he's holding his hair. There was starting to be bloodshed in the match. Undertaker was throwing Randy Orton towards the cell. He was bleeding. And also, Orton did one spot which I liked. He held Undertaker with the chain at one point. That was a good spot. And also, he was outside on the rope. Randy Orton did an RKO, and Undertaker bounced off the rope onto the cell. And they both were bleeding at this point. It was very brutal. But nonetheless, Undertaker prevailed despite the interference from Bob Orton again. And Undertaker beat Orton 1-2-3. That ended the feud. Now, this feud was a 9-month-long feud. It started from March all the way to December. Now, one reason it was prolonged, like I said before, because of the injury Orton had, the shoulder injury he had. He was out he came back June. So he was out for a couple months. It was a great feud, very underrated feud. I don't hear no one talks about this feud as much. This feud really captivated Randy Orton into stardom because he was able to go toe to toe with Undertaker in the matches. In the promos, it showed that he had a bright future ahead of him. And I like the fact that Undertaker even considered Randy Orton to defeat him at WrestleMania to end the streak. That's how much I knew Randy Orton, he was going to be a big star one day. Because he was still early on. It's just crazy. He was only with WWE for 3 years at this point. He was already in his beef feud with Undertaker. And it doesn't get talked about enough, as it should. Because he held his own against the Undertaker, no doubt about it. And what I like about Undertaker, this feud, anything with Undertaker at this point, especially the streak, this is bigger than any championship. You don't need a championship when it comes to the Undertaker. His name is so big at this point in his career, it's bigger than a championship. Like I say, it doesn't get enough shine like it should. I liked how his father was in the feud. I just thought he was in the feud a little too long. He didn't need to be in the feud that much longer than he should have. So Randy Orton, he caught a lot of heat in his feud with the catching his casket on fire, mocking Undertaker, disrespecting Undertaker, slapping him. This really brought Randy Orton back to the heel that he should be, because he was a face previously, as I stated in the last video, and it was a very bad face run, and it almost ruined him, but this brought him back. I would say this feud, the whole feud with Undertaker, it put Randy Orton back on top as one of the top heels in the company. That's what I liked about this feud with him so much. So I really enjoyed this feud. Now, a fun fact with Bob Orton Jr., his dad, he contracted hepatitis B when he was a teenager. Now, he didn't think he had the disease anymore years later, because I believe he was in his 50s at this point. But WWE tested him and he had the disease. Undertaker was unknown of this, and once he found out, he was furious for what I've heard, because Bob Orton also bled in the Hell in a Cell match, and that could have, contracted onto the Undertaker. Head of talent relations, John Laurinaitis, knew about it, didn't say anything, and this what led to Bob Orton's release, because he was not seen in WWE no more. He was released in February of the next year, 2006. If you notice, you don't see him in WWE anymore because he was released because of that. That's crazy. He had hepatitis B the whole time. Crazy. But nonetheless, great feud, great underrated feud. Now, if you guys like or dislike what I said, subscribe, don't subscribe. It's your prerogative, not mine. It's going to be 2 videos / shorts coming out at the end of this. Until then, we're going to have another video about Randy Orton. It's going to be another Randy Orton series video. I'm going to talk about more stuff after his feud. It's going to